how do you follow something like that? That's not fair. I mean, come on. No, great job, Ryan, and thank you guys so much for having me here today. You know, when they told me that we were going to be talking about leaving a legacy, I thought, well, we're all going to get together for the next 2 hours and talk about death. And I am a champion warrior, so I think about death all the time. And I definitely don't want to die in a plane crash, and I don't want to die being eaten by sharks. But I really don't want to die as the gruesome end of some adventure sports story gone wrong that wraps up with, and the chute didn't open. Yeah. So of course there are lots of moments to leave a legacy that don't have anything to do with death. If leaving a legacy is about making a meaningful contribution, one that continues to benefit others long after one's departure, then something as pedestrian as leaving one job for another is an opportunity to leave a legacy. So it got me thinking about work and the first person I ever had to fire. I was really nervous. I stood in my closet and I had to practice keeping my voice really level. And I thought a lot about his qualities. What did I want to say to him? I wanted him to know that he was a passionate engineer. You do your best work when you have black and white guidelines. You have a high ethical compass, and you work incredibly hard. Now, I see that you don't agree with the direction we're taking the company or that we're taking this product, and today I'm letting you go. He was stunned, and then angry, and then, you know, we're in this little conference room, and he's seething with fury, and he's standing up over me, and he's screaming at me that I am ruining his life. He even called me a bitch. But eventually it wrapped up, and he handed me his badge, and he left the building. And I'm standing in the conference room thinking, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. But a few months later, I got this letter in the mail. Let me read it to you. Dear Sarah, I couldn't have seen it then, but being fired was the best thing to ever happen to me. I found a position working in the military. You want to talk about a place that has good black and white guidelines. I am extremely happy in my new job. Without this push, I would have never made a change. I apologize for the way I left, and I wanted to say thank you. Leaving a legacy isn't just for the large endowment or the person who wins the Nobel Peace Prize or someone who ascends to the presidency. It's in the everyday. It's in the idea that we can help someone truly see their strengths, even when they're getting fired. Now, like most of the people here today who work, I suspect that your career path has as much to do with luck as it does planning. Let me give you a little bit of my own history. The tech company I was working for when I had to fire John had shrunk to about 30 people, and I found myself in this new job as the product manager for this, in an educational training company for this brand called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, pioneered by a guy named Stephen Covey. Now, just to frame how strange this was for me, I had come from an early career in Silicon Valley, working for Intel Corporation in the Andy Grove era where only the paranoid survive. And I had landed in this place where we were talking about seeking first to be understood, and then, seeking first to understand, and then to be understood, and thinking win-win. It was total whiplash. It was terrible culture shock. So to keep us on time here today, I will tell you 2 things. First, working at Franklin Covey was a profound shift in my life, and The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People has sold more than 25 million copies around the world. It was named one of the most influential books of our generation, or of our time. And Stephen Covey talks a lot about legacy. And here's what he says. Legacy isn't something you set out to create for the sake of it, but rather the natural outcome of living a life aligned with your deepest values and purpose. Stephen frames legacy as the cumulative result of living a principled, intentional life. For Covey, you naturally build a legacy when you do 3 things. Begin with the end in mind, prioritize what matters most, and foster positive relationships. Well, we've just talked a little bit about finding each other's strengths and connecting people to foster positive relationships. So let's learn a little bit about beginning with the end in mind. In this habit, Covey urges people to define their personal mission and envision the end of their lives. So I told you we were going to be talking about death. He asks you to imagine, what would you want people to say about you at your funeral? This habit is about clarifying what you want your life to stand for, and then ensuring that your daily actions align with that vision. The legacy you leave is a result of a life that you consciously design. Now, I was the product manager for this leadership book turned leadership workshop. I could not have told anyone how to consciously design their life for anything. I have had to grope my way through 50 years of hands-on learning to come up with a few things that I'm not so embarrassed to share. I would love it if people said about me at my funeral, Sarah helped me see my strengths. She connected me to other people. She helped me find a job I really liked. Because I believe the number one thing that we can do for others is provide connections, especially when there are economic implications. Helping someone get their first internship, scooching these teenagers out the door to get their first job, or even assisting someone to make a midlife career change by slipping their resume on top of the pile, or even when someone's getting fired. But here's a zag. What is far more likely for someone to say about me at my funeral is that it's no surprise I died with my little green planner in my hand. I will probably be buried with my Franklin planner. It has been my constant companion since it was 2005, which is longer than my first marriage. It helps me prioritize what matters most. Like Stephen said, we have to focus on what's most important, to make a plan to achieve that vision, and to be conscious about time. So let's think about time for a minute. If the average life is 79 years old, that's 4,108 weekends. If you're 30, you've already used up 1,500 weekends of your life. You get 10 days of vacation across 40 working years, that's 400 days of vacation, or just over 1 year cumulatively of your life. And if, let's say, we take one big family vacation per year as these kids grew up, then we only get about 18 vacations in a lifetime with the whole family. Studies suggest that married couples have sex about 58 times per year. Over the course of a 50-year marriage, that is 3,000 times. I'm going to leave it to you guys to decide, is that a lot or a little? Oh, thank you for the nervous laughter. We laugh 15 to 20 times per day. That's 580,000 laughs in a lifetime. We spend 80,000 hours of our life working, and it is no surprise to anyone here that we spend between 3 and 5 hours a day on our cell phones. And if you do that math, cumulatively, it's between 11 and 16 years. We're going to come back to that one. I love to read. And if I read 12 books a year for 80 years, I only get 1,000 books. Working people spend about 100 minutes a day commuting. So if you commute 5 days a week for 40 years, that's 2 years of your life spent commuting. We stand in line for 6 months, unless you live in Singapore, and then it's a little bit longer. And don't get me started on the cumulative effect of housework. From Aristotle to Seneca, to Benjamin Franklin, to Virginia Woolf, these luminaries understood the finite nature of time in life, and so did Stephen Covey. And in fact, in his third habit, called Put Things First, we learn to prioritize what truly matters. So Stephen would say that to build a meaningful legacy, you must focus on what's most important, and not get caught up in those urgent but less meaningful tasks. Looking at anyone on their cell phone right now. Covey clarified how to define what's most important in your life. It's your life's work aligned to your principles, values, and relationships. He said that the time and energy that you invest in your roles and relationships contributes directly to the legacy that you leave. So if we take Covey at his word that we must focus on what's most important, how do we accomplish that? It begins with a clear understanding of the roles that we play in our lives. I'm a mother, a wife, a technology leader, a manager, a daughter, a swimmer. a reader, and sometimes a pretty good friend. So take a second and think about the roles that you're playing in your life. And then the trick is that we must identify the goals and priorities that we play as we play each of those roles. And then we have to divide the time we spend in those roles doing the things that we love and prioritize over those 4,000 weekends and 400 days of vacation with 80,000 hours of work and 2 years commuting and 11 cumulative years of time on our cell phones. If it were up to me, I would ditch the cell phones. But since I don't see that happening, we must get a grip on how we spend our time. Grasp deeply these hours you've been given. Choose actively how to allocate your minutes each day. Plan monthly, plan weekly, and then plan and prioritize daily. Put the important objectives over the urgent and distracting tasks. Pencil in the 30-minute call to your mom every week. Book your hike to the top of Kilimanjaro next year. Spend next Wednesday working on your work project research. Allocate 15 minutes on Tuesday and Thursday to pick your daughter up at the bus. Put that time in your calendar. Turn off your email so you can focus. This is some of the trick to putting first things first and prioritizing what matters most. Because how blessed would you be if somebody stood up at your funeral and said, "When he was with me, he was 1,000% focused on me. She made time for me in her life. She prioritized me. When they said they'd do something, they delivered. He made commitments to me and he lived up to them." It's about time. Time is essential and it is abundant if you plan well. So by virtue of walking in this world, we will all leave a legacy. Maybe it's one of status or notoriety or fame, or one no less significant in its impact, to find each other's strengths and connect people, and to be planful so that the life that we lead and the relationships we leave behind stand firmly footed on conscious, principled choices for how we spent our time. I wish for you all good things in your legacy and in your life. Be planful, and thank you so much for having me here today.